Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. Dr. Exner-Perot, thank you for being here today. I have some questions. So even considering alternative emissions management tactics, you previously stated it's hard to conceive of a more expensive and divisive way to reduce emissions than the implementation of the current emissions cap. Can you explain why the emissions cap is really a production cap and why it's harmful in terms of investment?
Yeah, there seems to be a very big disconnect between, bureaucrats, who design these and people who actually have to work and raise money for their businesses in the system. And everyone in the oil and gas sector who has to, have buyers and sellers and investors say that this is going to result in a production cap. And whether or not there's some elegant mechanism, to choose, different offsets or that kind of thing. The fact is that their business is going to be less competitive vis-a-vis their global peers. And so this is, at the heart of all this for me, is that we are focusing so hard on reducing Canadian emissions without a line of sight on how that impacts global emissions. And you are shutting in Canadian heavy oil and Canadian LNG when the direct comparators, the orange to orange comparators in global markets, are almost always going to have higher emissions intensity. And actually, the oil sector has done quite well in reducing the emissions intensity. It was mentioned methane reduction has been a huge part of that on the conventional side. Oil sands barrels have also reduced by about 30% in the last 12 years. And so there are things that are working. There's TIER that is working to reduce that emissions intensity. People have put billions of dollars into trying to reduce the emissions. But at some point, you're just not competitive. And at some point, you just give that market share to somebody else. And so it's not, most of what their business is not trading carbon credits. It's trying to produce that unit of natural gas or that barrel of oil at the lowest possible price. And right now, we have oil is about $65 WTI. Natural gas in Western Canada has been below zero, sub-zero, wrong net zero prices in the last month. How can they be competitive when you're in a low price environment, which it's a commodity cycle, it'll be a low price environment sometimes, when you're adding climate costs that probably would be equivalent to $10 or $20 on each barrel of oil. So no, it doesn't require that you shut in production, but your business is not at all competitive, not at all profitable if you have to do all these things.
Thank you. So kind of further along that vein, government's own modeling through ECC assumes only a 0.7% decline in oil and gas production under the emissions cap. The PBO projects a 5.4% loss, and the Conference Board and Deloitte estimate around 11%. And actual production trends seem to kind of align more closely with the higher estimates. From your perspective, which data set is closest to reality, and what does this suggest? Does this suggest the government is downplaying the impact of its own policy?
Good question, because the ECCC scenario is already wrong. It's already based on data that has proven to be wrong. And I think it was based on CER, Canadian Energy Regulator scenarios, which were in turn based on International Energy Association scenarios. And as most of you probably in this committee would have noticed a month ago, the IEA came back and said, their current policy scenario doesn't see peak oil this decade and sees pretty much plateaus until 2050. So if you went back and put that back into the ECCC model, you would see that it was extremely ambitious. It hasn't played out that way at all. And there's a huge gap. In fact, it's trending, even the PBO numbers look very conservative and are not on track with reality here in October 2025. So it does look like the Conference Board and the Deloitte numbers were the most representative of what's actually happening in reality.
Your research suggests that putting a cap on Canadian oil and gas emissions could actually raise global emissions. You've stated this already today. You also mentioned the cost of reducing emissions this way could have up to an infinite cost per ton of carbon. Is that correct? And can you explain how?
I'll explain, yeah, because I wanted to use the infinity symbol in my paper, but the editor said it was too nerdy, so I had to take it out. But basically, when you're talking about Canadian LNG, and I think, lots of people across the political spectrum are now rightfully proud of Canadian LNG, that it tends to be the very lowest greenhouse gas intensity of any LNG available in global markets. Part of that is the makeup of the Montney. It is a particularly low emitting field, low carbon intense field. Part of it is the hydroelectricity that it takes to liquefy it. And part of it is just Canada's good environmental standards, for example, the no flaring and the methane regulations. And so if you are to displace, yes, okay.